I'm going to make the stereo stand that will hold the amp and the CD player in between the two speakers that I just made. I'm going to work from drawings. I do not have a prototype this time because this should be a fairly simple build. Famous last words. As a Zen master might say, we will see. It will be made of oak that is blackened and cherry, surprisingly enough. It should be a fun build. I'll also share the design journey with mistakes and bad ideas, and finally how I arrived here. So let's get to it. I didn't get a lot done day one. A friend called and there was a football game to watch. I basically got a bunch of these sticks cut. They're about 7/8 of an inch. The next step is to plane them down to 3/4 of an inch on each side. I realized the dust collection tube under the table saw was clogged and it made a huge mess. If you ever wonder if dust collection is worth it, just turn the dust collection off and make about 100 rip cuts and you'll see. To me, taking a bunch of sticks that look like this and make them look like this is just not a bad way to spend a day. A bunch of these boards that are 3/4 by 3/4. They have a good bit of snipe on the end and they're approximately 4 feet, a little over 4 feet long. I need a bunch of 1-foot pieces and a bunch of 2-foot pieces, but instead of cutting a bunch of the 2-foot pieces all at one time, I'm going to start with the 1-foot pieces. I'm going to start by cutting the snipe off, then cutting a 1-foot piece so that I know that there's 2 feet of good material left. And I'm going to put them on the bench all in the same orientation so that I'll know where the good cut is. Then set up the table saw for 2 feet so I can measure from the good cut this way so that if there's snipe on this end, I can get rid of it as well. At least that's the plan. I had some time to think about this process. I mean, the design is really simple. It's just stacking boards, but executing is not so simple. On my computer, it made sense to drill all these holes in the same place, make all the boards the same, put these little pegs in, and it would all just fit together magically. But even on the first 2 boards, there are gaps. The little pins don't go in exactly straight because they're short. They're tight. I'm afraid they're going to start splitting the wood. And when I think about this process and I extrapolate it through the whole thing, I think it's going to end up being a nightmare. And when a glue up is a nightmare, you just get desperate and you compromise quality. So I've thought about this a lot and I think I have a better process. I have even sketched the process. So the idea is first glue up 2 of these are the ends, get them straight, really good glue ups, then they become the frames. Then I can use boards to create a jig. So this is the top and bottom of the jig, and these are just boards that are clamped in place. Then I can make about 3 different glue-ups of the internal parts so that I know that I can get them tight, and then I can use the same kind of jig and glue it all together. At least that's the idea. So I said I would share the design journey. I start by kind of brainstorming in my sketchbook ways that I can make this piece. It really doesn't have to do much. It basically just has to hold 2 stereo components. If I was still in college, I'd probably just steal a milk crate and put the components on it and call it a day. But I want to make something a little nicer than that. I was thinking about the speakers and the angles of the speakers and trying to relate to them in some way. I was also thinking about the cherry and the blackened wood and wanting to use that in the stereo stand. I sketched these doodles pretty quickly, kind of stream of consciousness. Each time I think I have a great idea until I look back at it and realize it wasn't. So I arrived at this idea of 2 folded planes, but they wouldn't be planes, they would be made out of wood, so there would be extra, and I would just remove the extra wood. There also needed to be some supports, and I thought I really had a great idea. So I developed that idea in SketchUp, and ultimately thought I had something that was really cool. But then I looked at it a few days later and thought, that's not very good. I think the problem is it never really left the world of boards. It never really became a piece of furniture. So I went back to basics. I asked myself what I was trying to achieve. What was I trying to do? One thing I learned from all the other studies was I didn't want to just put the stereo components on a table. I wanted to visually enclose them. I wanted them to be in a box. And I wanted the box to be off the floor so that I could see the components. So I wanted a box on legs, which sounds kind of boring. But what if the box is not so boring? And what if the legs are not so boring? The box could be slats, which would be nice because it would allow all the heat from the amplifier to escape. And the legs could be what I call cowboy legs. I've been studying these legs with these tapers for a long time, and this idea of sort of reversing the way I usually do it to make cowboy legs. So that's how I got here. It's a box on leg. All right, so it's a new day. I thought I would do some workout here before the football game starts. The box is substantially complete. Just needs to be sanded and finished. So I'm going to start on the legs. I have bought some oak from the big box store, some water pieces, some 1/2-inch dowels, and some 1-bys, and that's what the legs will be made out of. So this is proof of concept. I've cut this board at a 6-degree angle. This board is long. This is laminated into a 1.5 by 1.5 piece. These will be laminated. This board is cut at a 6-degree angle, and this one will be long, so that ultimately they will fit together. And once it's all glued up, I'll cut off the extra. Now, I know that probably seems really simple and obvious, but I'm somehow never certain until I actually see it fit. Mistakes are a part of woodworking or making, and you think you make a mistake one time and you learn from it and you won't make it again. But this is a mistake I make a lot, which is I think that I need 4 identical things when in fact I need 2 mirror pairs. So you could tell I got lucky on these 2, these are mirrors, but I didn't get lucky on these because I wasn't thinking about that when I glued it up. This should have been glued up the other way. So they would have 2 angles so the legs would splay out. The fix, I'm going to cut this at the 6-degree angle this way, clean it up with the chisel, get this one really nice, so then I will have the mirrors that I need. This one will be slightly shorter than these, so I'll then cut them all to the same length. So the piece will be probably 1/4 of an inch shorter than it would have been. Just don't tell anybody. I've laid this out so that I won't make the same mistake twice, at least not in the same build. Mark the tapers and make sure that I get the tapers on the right side of the leg. It's just as simple as 8 inches high and then half the width, or 3/4 of an inch. These marks don't have to be perfect because I'll set this up on the table saw And once I set them up, they'll all be the same. The same is better than perfect. So I'm drilling holes for dowels that will connect the bottom of the legs. When I want a nice clean hole on both sides, I set the bit so that it almost goes to the end and just the center of the bit pierces the end of the material. So then you align the center of the bit with the tiny little hole, and you have a beautiful hole on both sides. Some people count sheep. I laid in bed last night thinking about how I was going to glue these legs up and get all the joints tight. Does that make me weird? I've lifted everything up on these blocks so I can get clamps in place. Put these clamps on somewhat loosely just to hold the parts in place. I have double stick taped these offcuts, wedges, so that I can get good clamping pressure in this direction. Now I can turn this over to address these. And I've screwed up because I didn't put glue on those, but that's fixable. Took it all apart. I put more glue on all the places that need to be glued. And now we're continuing. People give creativity all sorts of names, but I think this is just as creative as anything else. It's maybe a solution to a problem, but I think it's a creative solution and it's kind of elegant in its own way. It's another day. It's a cold day. You can probably hear the heater going. I thought I would do a little bit more work. I was getting ready for this glue up to glue up the legs, and last night I was working and I realized I was in a hurry, which is often the case. I spent decades in corporate America, so time is money, getting things done, all that kind of stuff. It's hard to train yourself out of. Trying to become a better craftsperson, I think the most important thing is to slow down so you can do a job well and enjoy it. And when I realized last night I was hurrying, I kind of wanted to be outside by the fire listening to music, and it was Friday night, and I thought, oh, I'll just get this glued up real quick, and then I can, listen to music. It was just a bad idea, so I stopped. Did what I wanted to do. Today's a new day. I'm going to take things much more slowly. I'm going to do more prep work, cut the extra off, and try to get the process correct. Sometimes sanding can be a lot of fun because this is going to start out like this, and then it's going to be transformed with this. And that is just the initial 80 grit sanding. I'll probably go up to 220. So I was having a hell of a time getting the glue out of these joints with my chisels. So I bought these crafting knives, which are perfect for getting the glue out of these joints. You know, it's funny that the designer thinks, wow, that's a cool way to make a box. The maker thinks, how the hell am I going to get all the glue squeeze out of all those joints? In the end, I think the solution for getting the glue squeeze out is just as much a part of the design as coming up with the idea for the box.